People think low water pressure is just annoying. A weak tap, a slow sink, something to wait out. It isn't. It's the moment the system loses control. Here's the point, clearly. Water pressure is what keeps drinking water clean inside your home. Not filters, not treatment plants. Pressure. As long as pressure is stable, water only moves one way, from clean supply to dirty drain. That direction is safety. When pressure drops, direction stops being enforced. This is where most people make the mistake. They see water still coming out and assume the system is still protecting them. It isn't. The water system doesn't fail cleanly. It degrades. And degraded systems don't stop working. They stop separating things. Under low pressure, pipes don't push water anymore. They start responding to gravity and suction. That means the system can pull from places it was never meant to. Old lines, dead-end spurs, basement connections, adjacent systems that normally stay isolated. The danger isn't no water. The danger is water moving the wrong way. Cities are built on the assumption that pressure never fails at scale. That's why drinking water, waste, fire suppression, and runoff can share infrastructure without touching. Pressure is the barrier. When it weakens, that barrier disappears quietly. This is why low pressure shows up early in serious failures. Power can still be on. Stores can still be open. Streets can still look normal. But once pressure drops, the rules inside your walls have already changed. Call this direction failure. It's when the system stops delivering water and starts exchanging it. Most people don't recognize this moment because it doesn't feel dangerous. There's no alarm, no warning, no official message explaining what just changed. Just a softer stream and the instinct to use it while it's still there. That instinct is the problem. Low pressure isn't an inconvenience. It's the city telling you it can no longer guarantee purity. And the next thing most people do, automatically, confidently, without thinking, is the exact thing that turns this silent failure into a real one.
Here's the mistake. People use the tap to test the tap. They flush, they run sinks, they fill containers while it's still working. That behavior feels logical because it's always been safe. Under low pressure, it isn't. This is the exact moment habit turns against you. Get to the point. Running water during low pressure increases backflow risk, not hypothetically, mechanically. Every open faucet lowers local pressure even more. Every flush creates suction somewhere else in the network. You're not using what's left. You're helping the system pull from the wrong places. This is the non-negotiable rule. When pressure drops, demand creates contamination paths. Pipes don't know intent. They respond to gradients. When you open multiple fixtures, you don't summon clean water. You create competing pulls. The system equalizes by drawing from wherever resistance is lowest. That can be harmless, or it can be from adjacent lines that were never meant to feed you. This is why partial service is worse than no service. A total outage stops movement. Partial pressure keeps things moving without control. Movement without control is how separation fails. People also assume filters save them. They don't fix direction. Filters handle particulates after delivery. Directional failure happens before the water reaches the filter. Once the system exchanges instead of delivers, the guarantee is gone. Call this the demand amplifier. Low pressure removes authority. Demand magnifies the loss. Together, they turn a quiet system issue into a personal exposure event. Notice what's missing here. Panic. There's no chaos, no warning, no dramatic sign. Just normal actions applied at the wrong time. That's why this phase hurts people who know better. Knowledge of normal conditions doesn't help when conditions invert. The city may restore pressure later. That doesn't rewind what happened during the dip. The exposure window is brief and invisible. By the time service stabilizes, the decision has already been made. This is why waiting feels smart, and acting feels productive. And both can be wrong if you act the way you always have. Low pressure doesn't ask you to do more. It demands you stop doing the familiar thing.
Here's the part people hate hearing. Most victims don't make reckless choices. They make normal ones at the wrong moment. Low water pressure doesn't hurt people because they ignore warnings. It hurts people because there are no warnings that match the danger. The system never tells you, this is now unsafe. It only tells you, this is weaker. And weakness doesn't trigger fear. It triggers adaptation. People adjust. They wait longer. They run taps longer.
they compensate. That's the instinct cities train into you. When something slows down, you lean on the system harder. Under low pressure, that instinct becomes exposure. This is where outcome diverges quietly. Two homes, same building, same pressure drop. One household barely uses water. The other keeps testing, flushing, filling. Same event, different risk. Not because one knew more, because one applied less demand. This isn't about blame, it's about system geometry. When pressure collapses, the network stops behaving like a pipeline and starts behaving like a web. Water no longer comes from the system, it moves within the system. That distinction matters. A pipeline delivers. A web redistributes. Redistribution is where separation fails. And here's the brutal part. You don't need contamination everywhere. You only need it somewhere upstream of you at the exact moment suction exists. That window can be seconds long. You'll never know when it opens, you'll never know when it closes. That's why outcomes feel random afterward. Why did it affect this building? Why not the one next door? Because pressure loss creates microevents, not uniform failure. And microevents don't announce themselves. Call this the silent window. The system is compromised briefly, invisibly, and legally. Nothing breaks code, nothing triggers alarms, but the protection you assumed existed is gone. People assume danger comes from outside, floods, spills, visible disasters. Low pressure creates danger inside the pipes you trust most. That's why it catches capable adults, not just the unprepared. The threat looks like inconvenience, not hazard. By the time pressure returns, the system appears normal again. Faucets run strong. Everything looks fine. That's what makes people dismiss what happened. The danger doesn't linger visibly. The decision point already passed. Low pressure doesn't create drama. It creates a brief moment where routine behavior carries consequences.
Here's the takeaway without padding. Low water pressure isn't a warning that service might stop. It's a signal that protection already has. People wait for outages because outages feel dangerous. Low pressure feels manageable. That's why it's worse. It invites interaction at the exact moment the system has lost its ability to guarantee separation. Nothing dramatic fails. The rules just change quietly. This is why cities issue advisories after the fact. The system doesn't register danger when pressure dips. It only registers flow. By the time someone decides to say something officially, the exposure window is already closed. Not because the city hid information, but because the system wasn't designed to flag the moment directionality broke. Call this the false normal phase. Everything looks familiar. Everything behaves slightly wrong. And familiarity is what convinces people to keep acting. This is also why people argue about whether low pressure is really dangerous. They judge by outcomes they can see. Illness, if it happens, appears later. The cause doesn't feel connected. The water looked clear. The tap worked again. Nothing felt like a mistake. That disconnect is built into the system. Here's the contrast that matters. When systems fail loudly, people stop interacting. When systems fail quietly, people interact more. That's the inversion. Cities are engineered to rely on pressure as an invisible guardrail. Remove it, and the infrastructure doesn't shut down. It becomes permissive. Permissive systems don't stop bad things. They allow them. This isn't about fear. It's about timing. There's a brief phase where the safest action is doing less, not more. But cities train you to respond to inconvenience with activity. That training works every other day. On this one, it doesn't. Low water pressure doesn't mean be resourceful. It means the system is no longer enforcing boundaries. And the reason this catches people over and over again isn't ignorance. It's trust. Trust built over decades of reliability. Trust that works until the exact moment it doesn't. That's why this phase matters. That's why the mistake is so common. And that's why the danger feels invisible until it's already passed. Low pressure isn't something to solve. It's something to recognize. And recognition, in this case, is the difference between inconvenience and consequence.